I think this year might be the year that Shockmania looks at more Filipino horror movies, especially if they're smutty like this. Hello everyone, I am the Artie Dans and welcome to Shockmania, and this is a kind of re-review of a movie called Livescream. I looked at it a few years ago, but I thought I'd look at it again because I'm in a bit of a Filipino horror movie kick. So I thought, I always complain about Viva not making VivaMax horror films. Well, this is a VivaMax horror film. So let's check out what it's about. Exodus and his girlfriend Amanda are the Examiners, a popular RealTube prank channel. Now, prank channels being the second most annoying channels on YouTube, only beaten by annoying movie review channels. Anyway, after one prank too many, none of which are actually funny, Exodus is kidnapped and dumped into a dark room with 8 glory holes, while a man in a gimp costume taunts him on a TV with his kidnapped partner in the background. The gimp wants to teach Exodus a lesson due to his indiscretions, and we, as the audience, are more than happy to let it happen. This is the kind of movie that you get when you cross Saw or Hostel with nipple executions. Yes, and honestly, I couldn't think of a nicer person for the scenario into this movie, the scenario in this movie to happen to, other than good old Exodus. And filmmakers, please take note of this. If you want the audience to care about the character, make them likable. Exodus is not likable, and thus watching him get tortured is utterly fantastic. But the torture here is rather mild if you're used to movies like Saw, Hostel, or Audition. It's interesting that the Philippines are attempting to play in this space. Thus, it makes the film more of a curiosity and definitely not something that I expected from them. Now, the few Philippine horror movies that I've seen, and I'm hoping to change that in 2026, have not been overtly gory, nor have they been overtly sexual either, of which this movie is both. Yes, this film is for the perverted. It starts off with a rather vigorous sex scene with some nice close-ups, and then keeps the sexual language strong throughout the film. There's scenes of sexual torture, themes of rape, and other such discussions, the kind of things you're probably expecting from Japan. However, the shock value alone is not enough. On top of the film having a general cast of completely unlikable characters, the film also can't decide if it wants to punish our main character or if we should feel sorry for him. Now, personally, I didn't feel sorry for him in the slightest, which means that the ending didn't quite work on me. Now, I'm not going to insult your intelligence by thinking that you can't work out how a movie like this ends. You know it, I know it, it's to be expected. It doesn't mean I had to like it though, and I didn't. It actually set itself up to be a potentially interesting whodunit style of film, but then it just veered into the realm of predictability. And once it did that, it kind of turned a bit silly. It wanted to be Scream, but it ended up being Halloween too. There's also an overarching feeling of amateurness in the film as well. The acting is barely adequate for our main guy, but the two girls, Rania and Amanda, are just awful. Rania especially. Now, I had to look her up, for research purposes to see who she was, because I assumed that she was just some kind of softcore movie actress, and this movie was one of her first titles where she hadn't done a lot of the softcore sex stuff, but of course, it's been a few years since this movie's come out, and her filmography is just full of smut. And essentially, that's it. The movie has some heavy sex, nudity, sexual references, torture, gore, revenge plotline, but barely an engaging story where you care about any of the characters. This is a bit of a dud. A bit of a dud. Not a big dud, but, a bit of a dud. But there are worse films out there, put it that way. There's a lot worse Philippine films out there as well. So if you're watching this one for the boobs, and to see how the Philippines would take on the Saw and Hostel franchises, but from a VivaMax perspective, of course, then that's why you're watching this film. And of course, there's no religious stuff in this movie either. Not that the Philippine movies are overtly religious, but that's kind of why I'm drifting away from the Indonesian stuff into the Philippine stuff this year, but I guarantee you I will be watching more Indonesian films than Philippine ones this year. It's just going to be how the cookie crumbles. Using the patent pending ghost rating, which stands for great horror or stupid trash, this gets 2 ghosts. I awarded this 2 ghosts a couple of years ago when I first watched it, and surprise, surprise, on re-looking at it, that rating has not changed at all. Look, there are some interesting moments in the films. The glory holes all, they look like vaginas, and so that's the theme that this movie's going for. It kind of wants to gross you out a little bit or put you slightly uncomfortable. It's not a movie that you're going to be sitting there watching with your 50, 60-year-old parents when they sit down to say, hey, let's watch a horror movie tonight. You're certainly not going to be putting this one on with them. But maybe, no, actually, no. If you're even starting to date a girl or a boy, you probably wouldn't want to put this one on either. I'd probably be very comfortable with a partner if you're going to be watching a movie like this. You know what? Watch Bulla instead. At least that was kind of cute. Gory, but kind of cute. Have you seen Livescream? I love the title of this film, Livescream, and there are a few other movies called Livescream as well, so don't get confused with them. This one's from 2022, from Philippines, from VivaMax, and it's just a little bit of a dud, but not a lot. If you've seen the film, leave a comment below, like, subscribe, all that other jazz. Big shout out to the 3 channel members whose names are on the screen right now. They are in the Discord. Well, 2 of them are in the Discord. The 3rd one isn't. I'd like you to join the Discord if you can, please, and then we can all chat with you. But join the Discord and have a chat with us about everything. We were discussing this film in there, which is what prompted the rewatch and re-review of it. But if you've seen Livescream or any other Philippine movie or an erotic horror film, leave a comment below to let me know what you think. Otherwise, I am the Artie Dans. You are watching Shockmania. Thank you so much, and I will hopefully catch you next time.